crazy. It is very humid today. Good morning, Reptilians. Welcome back to my channel. So really quickly before we get started, I've noticed that a lot of you guys want to see more of my husband on this channel. So we are thinking about doing Wednesday videos again, but where I used to do Wednesday vlog style videos, instead just kind of doing short DIY sorts of videos. So last week I talked about DIY bamboo out of PVC pipe. So it'd be kind of things like that, just like how to do that in just short video format. It won't be every Wednesday, but it will be every so often. So let us know in the comments what kind of quick DIY crafts you want him to try. And yeah, he will try those out coming up here soon. On to the video. This week we are going to be talking all about the proper lighting for bearded dragons. We're going to be talking about UV lighting and heat lights. This video was suggested a few weeks back by Barbara. Thank you so much, Barbara, for the suggestion. It was a wonderful suggestion. It just took me a little while to get all the information together. This video is going to be broken down into a few sections, and those sections will all be linked and in the description as always. But just a brief overview of what we will be talking about. We will be talking about proper heating, positioning the heat source, proper UV light, positioning the UV lighting, and about supplemental light sources. This video is all about bearded dragons, so you know that this video is sponsored by the Dubia Dude. Make sure to stay until the end of this video to find out how you can save 10% off of your entire purchase at thedubiadude.com. Let's get started. First of all, proper heating. So as you guys know, the main heat source for a bearded dragon is going to be heat bulbs. This is because bearded dragons are diurnal animals and they do come out in the wild in the daytime to bask in the sunlight, and that is how they thermoregulate. So it is very important that you are using the appropriate dome for your heat light, and what I mean by that is a couple things. Number one, heating fixtures, the dome fixtures, have maximum wattage measurements on them. So you need to make sure that the wattage of the bulb that you get is no greater than what that dome can handle. Now, the more wattage a bulb has, the hotter that it's going to get. Also know that domes that have reflective insides are going to put more heat off for your bearded dragon than a dome that doesn't have that reflective surface. Most reptile domes have that reflective surface, but if you're getting your dome from somewhere like Home Depot, they're not always going to have that, so just make sure that you are checking on that and getting what you need in regards to that. And you need to make sure that that bulb properly fits into that dome. If your bulb is hanging out of the dome and your dome has that reflective inside, then it's not going to do very much good because that heat is dissipating more than it would be if the dome was correct. So very important, make sure that your dome is appropriate for that light bulb. There are many different brands of heat bulbs that you can choose from. I am currently using a turtle swamp basking bulb just because I've noticed that it lasts the longest out of any of the other ones I've used, but really you can use whatever heating bulb you want, and any old pet store are going to have these. I always suggest using a higher wattage bulb with a dome with a dimmer switch because this allows you to adjust the temperatures as needed. So if you put that bulb in there during the summertime and then it's fall and the temperatures are dropping everywhere, you can just kind of turn that up. Or if first thing in the morning it is a lot colder in your house than it is in the afternoon, you can just adjust it and turn it up and down as needed. So I always suggest using that dimmer switch. You can get the dome with a dimmer switch, you can use a rheostat, or you can get a dimmer switch from somewhere like Home Depot and Lowe's. I think they're like $15. It just makes life so much easier without having to fiddle with bulbs to have the appropriate temperature. Just my personal suggestion, but you can use a fixed dome and a heat bulb. Now, people that use those fixed domes with the heat bulbs often ask me what wattage they need, and I cannot answer that because it depends on a lot of different things. It depends on what size tank you have. It depends on how far your basking spot is from the dome. what the temperature is in your house, what the ambient temperature is in that tank. My suggestion would be to start somewhere in the middle, and if it's not hot enough, go up, and that's the best advice I can give because it depends on you and your tank situation. But once you get that adjusted, it should be fine. Your temperatures may be a couple degrees too hot or a couple degrees too cold here and there, but overall it should be fine. I also very commonly get asked about mercury vapor bulbs. A mercury vapor bulb is a heat bulb with UVA and UVB built into it. Mercury vapor bulbs, when used correctly, have been shown to put out a pretty good amount of UVA and UVB for bearded dragons. My issue with using solely these though is that you have to do it perfectly. They have to be the perfect distance from your basking spot, or else you risk giving your bearded dragon too much ultraviolet light, and they have to be pre-burned, so they have to be basically broken in before you can even use them for your bearded dragon. If you're using a mercury vapor bulb and it blows out, you have to get another one and it has to burn for 24 straight hours before you can even put it in that tank. So that is now 24 straight hours that your bearded dragon just doesn't have any UV lighting and doesn't have any heat at all. And even if you are using a mercury vapor bulb, I still suggest using a UV light on the other side of the tank as well, because bearded dragons need access to UV lighting across their tank. Moving on to positioning that heat source. So of course the positioning of the bulb is going to be up, but let's talk a little bit more about that. So first of all, in order to figure out how far away from your basking spot your heat source needs to be, you need a temperature gun. Temperature guns are so important. I cannot stress this enough. A lot of people just want to use the ambient temperature thermometers in their tank to try to measure the temperature of that basking spot, but that isn't accurate. That ambient temperature could be a good 20 degrees Fahrenheit less than the basking spot. So if you're only paying attention to this and you're trying to get this up to 110 degrees for a baby, that basking spot could be 130, 140 degrees, which is way too hot for your animal. Make sure you have a temperature gun. Temperature guns are very, very important. The basking bulb can just sit on that screen, or it can be hung on a stand over the screen. But I do know some people have completely enclosed tanks, like wooden tanks, PVC sorts of tanks. If your heating bulb is inside of your tank, it is very important, in my opinion, to make sure you have some kind of cage or some kind of barrier over that light bulb to make sure that your bearded dragon isn't leaping into it and they could severely injure themselves. Those basking bulbs get hot. They get 300, 400, 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and having their bodies against that is not okay. The top of your tank should not be glass, and we will get to that in a little bit. If it is just sitting directly on that glass, the glass is going to get hot, and if it's sitting completely pressed against it with no ventilation, there is a chance that that glass is going to get so hot that it cracks, and obviously that's not good. Also know that I wouldn't suggest putting it directly on the rim of a plastic lined top or a plastic aquarium. I've gotten secondhand aquariums before where the entire rim was melted from heat bulbs. And a big one, do not put your heat source over a water source or over your bearded dragon salad. If you have a water bowl in your bearded dragon's tank, putting a heat source over it is going to cause all of that water to evaporate and quickly raise your tank's humidity, which could cause respiratory infections for your bearded dragons. If you have a salad bowl in your tank, maybe your bearded dragon is a little picky and just kind of picks at the salad throughout the day. If you put that heat source on top of that, it's just going to dehydrate all of the vegetables. And one huge way bearded dragons get their moisture, get their water, is from their vegetables. And if their vegetables have dehydrated, then obviously they're not getting any water from those. So just make sure it's not sitting on top of that salad. Moving on to proper UV lighting. I want to preface this by saying we will not be reading the actual measurements from UV lighting because I do not have a solar meter. Those things are $150 to $250. If that is the kind of video you are looking for, ReptileMountain.tv did a video where he measured different bulbs, and another channel that I found called Gnarly Dragons did a video where they measured different bulbs at different distances and with mesh screens and without mesh screens that that was very informative, but I will leave both of them linked down below if you're interested in that. But very important to know, different UV lights are going to put off different amounts of ultraviolet light. No two brands of lights, no two kinds of lights are the same, and this is very, very, very important in choosing proper UV lighting for your bearded dragon, because UV lighting for bearded dragons is imperative. It's not like some other creatures that you can do UV or you can supplement. Bearded dragons have to have ultraviolet lights on their tanks to prevent metabolic bone disease. The way that this is measured is by something called Ferguson zones. Basically what those Ferguson zones are how much your animal needs of that UV lighting. That chart will also be in the description, but basically this is in the wild what these animals would be exposed to. In the wild, how much UV lighting these animals would be exposed to. The most popular choice for bearded dragons is going to be linear lighting. And the two most popular brands of these is going to be the Zoomed Reptisuns and the Arcadia 12%. Bearded dragons need that UV lighting to span at least 2/3 of that tank. It can span the entire tank if you want, in order to make sure that they are getting UV lighting wherever they go. If they were in the wild, the sun is everywhere. It's not just in one concentrated spot, it's everywhere. So while a hiding spot is going to be important for your bearded dragon, just in case they want to hide, as it would be in the wild, it is important that that light spans everywhere. Super important about UV lighting. It needs to be changed every 6 months. Your bulb is most likely not going to blow out before then. It's not going to go out. You're not going to notice that it looks any different. It's not even going to dim. But after about the 6-month mark, one of two things is going to happen to that UV bulb. Number one, it may get weaker, which means that your animal is no longer getting the amount that they need. Or two, as found by Reptile Mountain TV, that bulb could reach dangerous levels for your animal, and we don't want that. Those are the most popular options for bearded dragons, but some people do insist on using coil bulbs. And while it is possible to maintain a healthy bearded dragon with a coil bulb, I do not recommend it. There are a couple reasons. If your tank is appropriately sized and you are using a coil UVB light, that means that that animal can only get its UV lighting that it needs if it basks. It can only get it in one spot. Or alternatively, if you have your lights on two different sides, that means that your animal is having to choose if they want to bask at that moment or if they want to get their UV light in order to absorb the calcium that they've intaked. In addition, those coil UV lights are not putting off as much UV lighting as a tube light, especially when we get to trying different brands. There's been multiple brands, especially if you are trying to go a cheaper route, that just don't put off enough at all for these animals. In an appropriately sized tank for your bearded dragon, the only way that I could see a coil UV light working would be, number one, there are multiples spanning across the tank, and number two, you have a solar meter to make sure that all of the zones in that tank are putting off the correct amount of UV lighting. But doing something like that costs so much more than just getting the linear light. It is a lot more difficult, and those two brands of linear lights have just been shown to be more reliable and more consistent than the coil lights. It's just safer to go with the linear tube lights for your animal. Now let's talk about positioning that UV light. You have a couple of options here. It can go on top of the tank, outside of the tank, or inside of the tank. My UV light is on the inside of my tank. The way that mine is inside is by using little metal brackets. It has worked, it has held up, and it hasn't budged. I do know that a lot of people too will use industrial strength Velcro. The reason that you would want to put it inside of your tank is because any kind of screen between that light and your animal actually filters out quite a bit of UV lighting from reaching your animal. This is not to say that you should not have a mesh screen on your tank. You most certainly can. I do suggest that if you have that mesh screen on top, you do go with something like the Reptisun 10.0 high output, and that just is putting off a little more UV lighting so that it can penetrate that screen better. But again, that depends on how tall your tank is and all of that, which was in that video that I was talking about, gnarly dragons, where they kind of tested out the different heights and what it looked like at different heights. Another thing that you can do, especially if you don't feel comfortable mounting it to the inside of the tank, and you also don't want to deal with the filtration of the mesh, is you can mount it just outside of the tank bare. A lot of people with adult bearded dragons don't put tops on their tank because as long as you don't have any decorations too close to the top, most likely your bearded dragon isn't going to go anywhere. Now, this is not a guarantee. I am not telling you not to cover your tank, but I am just saying that it is a possibility. It is something that people will do. Please don't do this if you have small children or dogs or cats or anything that can get into that tank. We don't want to risk that. So if that is a better option for you, then go for it. Never put your UV light on top of glass. While glass only filters out about 25% of UVA radiation, which is used to grow plants. It is when you put your plant in a windowsill and it continues to grow. Glass filters out almost 100% of UVB radiation. Again, back to that other video, one of the first things they do is test a tube UV light against nothing and then against the glass, and the number drops to almost 0. Please do not put your light on top of glass, or else you are essentially giving your bearded dragon nothing. UVB lighting is used in D3 synthesis, meaning it is very important in calcium absorption for these guys, so make sure you are not putting it on glass ever. And the last thing we're talking about with the positioning of the UV light is distance. UV lights, even if it's a linear light, do not put off the same amount of UV lighting across the tank. Closer to that light is going to put off more, farther is going to put off less. What this means is that you need to have different spots in the tank where your animal can get closer and farther away from the light. And if your UV light is hanging all the way up here and your tank is all the way down here, most likely your animal's not getting the proper amount of UV light. This also means that if your UV light is right here on top of your tank and you have a hammock right here, your bearded dragon could be getting dangerous amounts of UV lighting, as bearded dragons are able to kind of regulate themselves in that, just like they do thermoregulation, but sometimes they just don't. So it's very important that you don't have places like that that are super close to that UV lighting, because they can hurt themselves that way. But most bulbs are going to come with a sort of chart that shows you how far away your animal should be from certain light sources. And the last topic we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about this very quickly, is supplemental lighting. The reason I am including this is because some people, especially in wintertime or overnight, like to give their bearded dragons red or blue lights. These lights are not necessary at all, and red lights have been shown to be harmful for a bearded dragon's eyes. Bearded dragons are diurnal creatures, which means at nighttime they just want to sleep in the darkness. Now, if you do need supplemental heating at nighttime, the absolute best thing you can do is get a ceramic heat emitter. Ceramic heat emitters are going to go into a light fixture dome, but they don't put off any light. They just emit heat. These things, though, can get very hot, and so it is very important that if you are using one of these, then you use either a dome with a dimmer switch or a rheostat, or a dimmer switch from somewhere like Home Depot, Lowe's. And again, this is where a heat gun is going to come in handy, and a thermometer on the wall is going to come in handy because you don't want it hiking up those ambient temperatures like crazy. But that is it. Hopefully, if you are about to get a bearded dragon, you learned something about how important their lighting is and how to set up those lights. Again, make sure to leave your suggestions below on what you would like to see my husband try for his DIY Wednesdays. Like I said at the beginning of this video is sponsored by the Dubia Dude. The Dubia Dude is an awesome place to get dubia roaches for your bearded dragon. That is where I get all of my dubia roaches from now. TheDubiaDude.com is a small business who sells organically fed, very healthy roaches for these bearded dragons. And they can't climb smooth surfaces, so you don't really have to worry about them escaping out of the bins that you're keeping them in. I know a lot of people get really icky about keeping dubia roaches, and I understand. I was terrified of roaches, but these guys are so much cleaner than crickets, and they don't stink up your house, which is fantastic. And on top of that, they are a lot more nutritious and a lot more filling than crickets are, so that means you have to feed them less dubia roaches in order to fill up your bearded dragon. Make sure to use my code Elle at thedubiadude.com to save 10% off of your entire order. Thank you so much to The Dubia Dude for sponsoring this video. As always, if you have not already, please feel free to follow me on my other socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every single time I put out a new video. video, which is every Sunday. This week's Instagram shout out is The State of Nate. Thank you so much for following me on Instagram and going through and liking a whole bunch of my stuff. This week's subscriber shout out from last week's video is Phyllis Wells. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for being so supportive and commenting on my videos. Thank you guys both so much. You are the bee's knees. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. Make sure... What are you doing?
She's still gone. I've never seen this setup before. Actually, it's really nice.
Appropriate heat dome. Actually, you're making a lot of noise.
My bad, dog. I'm trying. Oh, they're there. Oh, those are disgusting. Love you, bye.
There you go.
You're waiting on me?
I mean, no, I wasn't. I was just taking, I was trying to collect it.
Stop. As soon as you heard me standing there.
No.
I grabbed my cell phone, or I grabbed my wallet, not my cell phone.
Attention to this, then... So if you're only paying attention to this, then this up to 100 degrees. Why are you not focusing on me?